One of the reasons why this fight with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg needs to happen is because of its cultural implications in multiple reasons. For one, when you think about an MMA gym or any mixed martial arts gym or any composite sport that deals with martial arts or mixed martial arts in and of itself, there is no one guy is better than the other. Everybody is chill, everybody is the same, everybody is cordial with each other, and nobody really cares about what you drive, what kind of money you have in your bank account, or what kind of notoriety you have in the fight world or outside of it. The only thing that matters in there is that everybody is in there to work hard, everybody's in there to learn a new skill, and everybody is in there to get better. Now, that is as universal as it comes. Now, when you have somebody like Elon Musk and then you have somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, there's a couple of things that they have in common, and there's a couple of contrasting things that make them the complete opposite, if not mortal enemies to a certain extent. For one, you have Elon Musk, who many say is a beacon of the freedom of speech that is missing in today's world in terms of a couple of things. For one, the censorship that is going on in all of social media, in which he's trying to counter and give platforms to people like, let's say, Andrew Tate, who was recently canceled only to be given a second chance. Same thing with Alex Jones. This is the type of person that Elon Musk is trying to be, and a person that he's trying to follow in that linear path of freedom of speech and First Amendment rights. Whereas with the opposition of that, you have Mark Zuckerberg, who is part of the status quo, somebody who believes that they are a self conscious or consciously aware human being in the modern times, and somebody that is a champion for anti bullying. But yet, the other contrasting side of that is how people view him as somewhat of a tech oligarch, a dictator, somebody that has given people Facebook jail for the most minuscule things. And then you have many people out there claiming and arguing about, let's say, the AIs that are taking over right now Facebook. And I'm not talking about the AI conspiracies to any extent. I'm talking about just AIs that are working in Facebook and canceling these different Facebook pages and personal pages and all these other things that come into the fold because of whatever ethos that Facebook is trying to follow. And these two guys, the one thing they have in common is they're billionaires, but they're both doing it differently. You see, Mark Zuckerberg is the type of guy that really doesn't care if his whole entire company burns to the ground. He will go out there and train his butt off for months on end and not really care about what's going on in the business. And perhaps maybe one can argue that perhaps he has the type of business that's just running on autopilot, meaning that all the years that he's put into this work with this particular company, he can somehow take a 1 year vacation and then it's going to come back intact, or not only just come back intact, but also be in the type of position where it even grows exponentially higher or stays the same, or as at a level that it drops to where he doesn't really care, so long as he's accomplished it all. So what does he really care, right? So kind of leads you into this fight between him and Elon Musk. What started all of this? None other than just plain ego. But then everything evolved into this aspect of Dana White trying to matchmake this whole thing. And then he comes into question with his own integrity process in the way that he views things, in the way that he says one thing and then does something else in complete contrast to his initial statements and meaning, and the type of outlook that he wants the UFC to have to the world as this fighting organization of where the best fight the best, and they don't do gimmick fights. Not unless you have Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg getting into the mix, giving its possible highest ever pay-per-view numbers. And that is the potential that can come out of this. But let's really call a spade, and what it is that these two guys are just not professionals in what they do. They are not pro fighters. They are not lifelong martial artists, even though they have trained martial arts to a certain extent. And this is why I said Elon Musk is the type of guy that would not allow his company to burn down to the ground, in contrasting to Mark Zuckerberg, where he doesn't care. Elon Musk works day and night. He is a symbol of work ethic. Not only that, his brain fires 100 miles an hour to where he has all these different ideas running through his mind. And in that process, he has to come somehow create these images that he has and bring them to life. All these ideas that he has to advance humanity in terms of technology, in terms of AI, in terms of driverless cars rather. This is the type of person Elon Musk is, always on the move. But his focus now has to be in mixed martial arts if this fight is even real, because a lot of people are speculating one to the other. People are talking about weight classes. What does it all really mean? Are these going to be a problem for any commissions? And if so, what sort of commissions will accept them to the degree of weight differences? And then on top of the fact that you got to take into consideration, Elon Musk is 50 years old. Now, Mark Zuckerberg is not really that old. He's 38, 39 years old. I'm 38 and I'm 39 years old. And I mean, you've seen some of my workout videos, right? We're a lot closer to our prime than somebody who's a 50-year-old. And will that really mean anything? Perhaps maybe Elon Musk has the right size to take advantage. Or maybe he doesn't. But guess what? The kicks and punches in this whole entire fight isn't even the biggest aspect of the story. See, the biggest aspect of this story is the two contrasting natures in which these men are operating under. One, you have Twitter, who is in a hot seat with a lot of people and a controversy that they're willing to allow. And then you have Facebook, who goes into the status quo way of thinking, in being conscious, in being anti-bullying, in sometimes overreaching their powers of gathering data from people and selling it to the highest bidder in the market out there for the information wars of marketing and advertising and everything that comes with that, and all the advantages that come with being affiliated with Facebook. That is who Mark Zuckerberg represents, and then Elon Musk represents something else completely different. So the way that I saw it today in the Jesse on Fire live stream, he mentioned something to the effect where if you're for free speech, you're going to be for Elon Musk. And if you're for, let's say, the status quo of being a socially conscious person, you're going to go for Mark Zuckerberg. But is it really that simple? Yes, it is. Why? Because this is not a complicated fight that attracts the hardcore fans. Of course, the hardcore fans are going to watch anything regardless, especially if, let's say, you actually put real fighters in the undercard along with the UFC as pretty much the brand ambassador of this whole entire fight. The issue here also stems with understanding that as human beings, whether there is a basketball game going down in the court, or whether there is a soccer match going on in the park, or whether there are people out there playing baseball in a field that is shaped like one or made for a sport like that, If there is a fight going on in the basketball court, if there is a fight going on in the soccer or football or baseball stadium, guess what? The attention of the game, people won't even care about because there's a fight going on the other side of the stadium or in the stands or in the parking lot, or the brawl had just spilled over into the field. And then at that point, the game in and of itself is the least important thing of the entire focus. At that point, the most important thing that matters is the fight. And that's what you have with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, is just another fight. But it's not just any other fight. It's a fight where these two men are humanized into understanding that they bleed like us, they sweat like us, and they're going to show the same deficiencies as any pro or amateur there is out there. And ultimately, that is the beauty of fighting. The beauty of understanding that you are human, the beauty of understanding that you have vulnerabilities, the beauty of understanding that you can get hurt and you can get injured and have your limbs broken just like anybody else and go to sleep if you get choked out long enough, or if you get hit with the right punch, you're going to go out and bruise and get cut and bleed. But that is the most important thing about this fight. Not just the contrasting nature of your two ideologies, but the commonality that we have as men and as human beings is that we all bleed. And not only do we all bleed, we all love violence just the same. So I think that is the most important aspect of this entire fight. Also, another thing that I think is very important about this fight is that these two guys, no matter how much money they have, it proves that every man out there wants to prove that they are dangerous or wants to prove that they are worth anything when it comes to a physical altercation. No money in the world can buy that, can buy the rush of walking out there with your entrance music, the world watching you, and then more importantly, the world watching you win in victory, but then the agony of defeat and humiliation that you face, but then also the aspect of people really not caring about the outcome after the fact. You see, one of the things that many fighters and vets in the game really have a hard time coming to conclusion with is understanding that people out there don't really care about the conclusion as much as they think. How do I know that? Well, take for example, Randy Brown, UFC fighter, recently just got a win in the latest UFC fight night, right? Prior to that, he fought out in Australia, flew all the way out there to Perth, only to get knocked out and finished by none other than Jack Della Maddalena. All the people that were there in the UFC Australia 284 card, they remember that fight, but then some don't, and then some won't even remember who Randy Brown is. And then some have seen that fight, but then have also seen the recent fight of Randy Brown and totally forgot about all that knockout that had happened to him. GSP said something very interesting when he mentions how much nervous he gets before going into a fight. He says something to the effect where, at first, I was very nervous to go into a fight because I thought that, this random grandma who sees me in a supermarket hours before the fight, I think that maybe she is watching me or maybe she is laughing at me. But then, I realized that, what? This grandma does not even care. Nobody really cares about my fight. This is what George St. Pierre said back in 2011 to try to cope with the aspects of anxiety going into a fight. But the reality is that he's right. a lot of people didn't really care, especially the random grandma that he saw in the supermarket prior to his weigh-in or prior to the day of his fight where he's going into the arena. They don't care. That's true. But what if you live in the Conor McGregor era where everything is up at stake? Because once again, this probably explains why McGregor is the way that he is mentally, because of the fact that his fights are such at a high stake that it is not like any other fighter. It's not like Jim Miller, to where he can have fight after fight where he's in these Apex cards and none of it really matters, so he can accumulate to having 40 fights going on in his entire career. And whereas with Conor McGregor, he's only had maybe like 14 or 15 fights in total in the UFC because of the circumstances that every fight has to be escalated into this high promotional level. So it's a little bit different. Yes, if you're GSP, and by the way, GSP is one of the most popular guys in mixed martial arts, but back then, he's right. For him, even in his standards and his popularity, that random grandma from the Midwest who he saw in some random supermarket is not going to care about his fight, but not in today's era, not in today's mixed martial arts. Now, you escalate that away from mixed martial arts, from people that are way more popular than mixed martial arts or other fighters or just sport in and of itself, or in the entire sports world in and of itself. You take someone like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, way beyond famous, way beyond rich, way beyond anyone's imagination in this small world of combat sports. Now they want to step into a cage. All of that matters. All of that is where that actual grandma in the supermarket that GSP was worried about, seeing his fight, seeing him get knocked out, those people will actually watch this fight. And there's a lot at stake at that. And that is why we watch fights, is the stakes that are involved. When I mentioned Jim Miller and all these random fights that he has in the UFC, the Apex cards, the cards where there's not enough crowds, or in these small venues or these small markets that the UFC goes to in their random fight nights outside the Apex. Not a lot of pressure, but escalate that pressure. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Conor McGregor fights. Escalate that pressure even higher. It doesn't get any higher than a Conor McGregor fight. Oh, but it does. And the weird thing about it is that it doesn't even involve real people within mixed martial arts. And that in and of itself is why this fight is important, because of those things that I had mentioned. It's important because people need to understand that they are humans just like us. It's important that they are going to be an interaction with the type of normal interaction that anybody in the gym gets on a 24-hour basis, on an everyday basis, on a yearly basis. And the normality that comes with that, and the process that comes with the anxiety of getting ready for this big matchup, because people know who you are and people know what's at stake. And can you even imagine how this will affect their stock as a company in whatever it is that they do afterwards? I gotta tell you, the theater of the unknown is one of the most exciting things that you can deal with. But it's also one of the most nerve-wracking things that you can also experience. And that is something money can never buy. And when you look at those two billionaires that want to get in here and do that, that's weird. But not only is it weird, it's also fascinating. But we are fascinated by weird things. Just like Floyd Mayweather's dad, he mentioned, well, why is it that a lot of people are compelled wanting to watch this fight with your son and Conor McGregor? Well, he said it in the best way and the best explanation possible. People love watching weird things. But watching weird people do weird things seems like the most normal thing that these two men will ever do.